How you doing, Gary?
I'm well. Welcome.
Thank you.
Timing is everything. You made it just on time.
Good to be here.
I got to like that. We spent the first half hour of the show talking about campaign promises and who's keeping tabs. Who's keeping tabs on who's promising what. How difficult is it right now? Because, quite honestly, every time a government changes hands, usually the first thing we hear is the books are in worse shape than we thought they were. We can't deliver on our promises. How difficult is it to keep that in focus?
Well, you have to keep it in focus. What we always do is we use the government's own figures as the basis for calculating what different initiatives are going to cost. Today, our announcement is something that's not going to cost the taxpayers anything. It's just standing up for taxpayers against this gouging that's going on through credit card interest rates that are really brutal on a lot of people. And I know we're now at a level of family debt that's reached a record of $100,000 a family in debt, and a lot of people just can't pay those credit card bills, even though with the cost of everything going up, I mean, everything from gas to food, people are having to use their credit cards more and more just to get by. And we think that it's time for government to lay down the law and put a cap on the interest rates, which is what we're proposing to do.
A cap of what?
We're saying 5% above prime. After all, if you think back over the years, prime used to be close to 10%. Now it's down around 3%. Well, how come the credit card interest rates are still at 20%? They didn't change. We don't think that's right. We don't think it's fair. And the banks just made $21 billion in profits. They're doing very, very well. They got another big tax cut from Mr. Harper, $890 million this year alone in more tax cuts for the banks. We don't think they need the help. We think that the average person who's trying to make ends meet is the one who needs the help.
That's not going to play well on Bay Street, is it?
Well, you know, I think Bay Street's doing well enough. They seem to get all of their needs attended to by government. But what about the people who've lost their jobs, who used to have good middle-class jobs around, particularly up and down the 401 and in the heartland of manufacturing Ontario? We've seen an awful lot of businesses close. We've seen people have to go out and get a job at half the salary that they used to earn, oftentimes losing their pension or their benefits at the same time. And so I think it's time for government not so much to stand up for Bay Street particularly. I mean, we want to have strong banks, don't get me wrong, but they shouldn't be able to gouge people. And that's what's happening. And that's where you need your elected representatives to stand up for you, and that's what New Democrats are all about.
If you've got questions for Jack Layton, the phone lines are open. I'm going to have to get you to put your headset on, Jack, so you can hear our callers. So let's you do that, and let's get to the phone calls now. And Ann, here on 570 News.
Hello?
Go ahead, Ann, you're on.
Sorry about that. Mr. Layton, all I want to know is on May the 3rd, if it's still a conservative minority, are you going to snub your nose at the Canadian electorate and support a coalition government?
Well, our approach is always to work with other parties to make sure that the majority of representatives are able to work together. That's our goal. We'll work with anyone who wants to build a better and a stronger country. And so, as I'm saying, we believe in working together. We believe in parties working together. Mr. Harper doesn't, although he once did. When he was leader of the opposition and Paul Martin had the most seats, he was talking to us about possibly him becoming prime minister, even though he didn't have all the seats or as many seats as Mr. Martin. So it's interesting how views apparently change over time. I'm not sure whether you can really trust him on it. But our record is working with other parties. When the Liberals wanted to give a big corporate tax cut, but they were in trouble on some scandals, we said, look, let's cancel that corporate tax cut and put it into education for our kids and into transit, some of which came into transit projects right here in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and also for affordable housing. And so we were able to get some results for Canadians, and that's the approach we're always going to take.
All right, let's keep rolling. Bob, you're on 570 News.
Hello, sir.
Hi there, Bob.
How are you?
I'm well. What's up?
Okay, Mr. Layton, I have one question for you. These policies that you're putting in, right? Are they going to come in this election, or are you going to try to mislead people like Mr. Harper has by putting them in 4 years down the road?
Yeah, that is the kind of a very unusual election promise he's come up with, to give a tax break 4 years down the road, which could well be even after a further election. Who knows? No, our commitments are for Right now, we think families need help right now. We know that seniors need help right now. Not some time off in the future, which you can never be sure what circumstances are going to be then. And so our commitments in this election around affordability and around retirement security, around health care, getting more family doctors and nurses with family practice, those are all for right now.
All right. Mike, you're on 570 News.
Hi, Mr. Layton.
Hi there, Mike. How are you doing?
Pretty good. He wants to spend all these billions and trillions on the war planes. Is your stand against it? And he wants to spend big bucks on prisons that we don't need. Also, he just got us involved in another war in Libya, and he lied about Afghanistan. What is your take on this? Because he's spending trillions and billions of dollars on this. And how can you trust this guy?
Well, that's certainly a question I think a lot of Canadians are asking. And as you know, the New Democrats have been calling for our troops to come back from Afghanistan for quite a long time. They have done really amazing work in terms of their commitment to this country. And, of course, we sadly lost another brave young soldier just the day before yesterday. And so our thoughts and prayers are with them. And what upsets me is that we don't seem to be able to take care of the veterans when they come home and their families. And the Veterans Ombudsman, Colonel Stroglin, has really underlined that. And we think that making sure that those veterans get support here when they come home is important. But, you know, we haven't even had a debate, not in the House of Commons, let alone the whole country, about these fighter jets. Our defense team needs equipment. But why don't we have a national debate about what the priorities ought to be before we start committing ourselves to billions of dollars?
To that point, when's the last time there was a debate in the House of Commons?
On things like purchases for the military?
On issues.
A heck of a long time ago.
And I think I find that disconcerting. I've said many times on this show, I used to watch Question Period. Now it embarrasses me.
Well, it is an unfortunate, it has slipped into kind of name-calling, hasn't it? And we think that's wrong. We think that Parliament should be a place that's respected, but sadly our current Prime Minister doesn't really seem to respect Parliament, will adopt motions to reflect the majority will, and he just ignores them. And or if he can't kill a bill in the House of Commons, he'll use his appointed friends in the Senate to kill the legislation that was adopted by the elected people, and that's very anti-democratic.
All right, we've got Jack Layton in studio with us. If you've got questions or comments, but there's still a couple of phone lines open. You can email me, you know the way, and we're live streaming today at 570news.com. Jim, you're on 570 News.
Good morning. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Mr. Layton, just a question for you. Across Canada, and I know in this province, I know alone, for an example, school bus drivers are the lowest paid. They make $45 a day. I'm just wondering how your party feels about that when they take such a big responsibility of taking kids to school and things like that.
No kidding. Jim, are you a school bus driver yourself?
Yes, I am, believe it or not.
Yeah, well, thank you for what you're doing for our young people, because you know, I remember the school bus driver when I was growing up, you know, was a really important person in your life, you know, because you'd see him every morning, especially on those really snowy days.
Yes. He was probably a disciplinarian, too.
Well, to some degree. Of course, we were so well behaved.
Oh.
Yeah, I believe that. But, no, you know, this is the first time I've heard that the pay is that low, and naturally that worries me. Are you in one of the private companies?
Yes, pretty much all the companies are private nowadays.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a standard rate across Waterloo region is $45 a day.
Yeah, well, it's pretty tough to make ends meet with that level of pay. Now, those are decisions that have to be made by your local officials. The problem they're facing is that our national government doesn't seem to really be there to support local. Whether it's local government. I just had a good conversation before coming on the air with Mayor Carl Zaire, for example, about the need for financing for the things that go on in municipalities, particularly infrastructure. Because if we don't finance infrastructure properly and we don't finance the services properly, well, then businesses are going to start to look elsewhere. They'll say other cities are in better shape. And that would be a tragedy because we've got such a great workforce here. And we do have a lot of the infrastructure, but some of it's getting a bit long in the tooth, you know, when we talk about sewers and bridges and so on. And then there's various ideas around transit expansion, very, very important to get that commute dealt with.